There's no good way to put this. It's going to be a bad year for Arizona State. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. Ready to break down the Sun Devils, break down their schedule, break down their record, break down their roster for this upcoming season, year 2 under Kenny Dillingham. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our weekly newsletters. Do not miss out on those. Tons of fun, exclusive content over there, free to sign up for, as well as our expert picks. Those aren't free to sign up for, but they're some of the best picks in the country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country. We've beat out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years. We're going to make it 7 by the end of this year, so go check it out. Everything down there on our website in the description there for you to become a member of our GE Nation. So Arizona State, guys, it's been a really rough last few years. 3-9 in back-to-back seasons, 3-9 last year in year 1 under Kenny Dillingham, where they barely survived Southern Utah in the opener and then had to pull off upsets over Washington State and UCLA just to reach that mark. Very well could have been a 1-win season for the Sun Devils, but they managed to get 3, including 2 conference wins. They did have 3 one-possession losses, losing by 1 possession to California, Colorado, and Washington. But this is a team, guys, that's still very young. They've got a young head coach. They've got a young roster. They really don't have a lot of talent on that roster. And now they've transitioned from the Pac-12 to the Big 12 and have one of the most difficult schedules in this conference. You take a look at the offense. 6 starters are back after averaging just 17.8 points per game. They were atrocious offensively last year. And a big issue, sure, was injuries. A big issue was obviously quarterback play. They didn't have any consistent quarterback play. That's why they went out and added Sam Leavitt to come in at quarterback from Michigan State. Also add Jeff Sims, the experienced transfer from Georgia Tech and Nebraska, although some would say that's not a good thing. They do bring in Jake Smith at wide receiver, transferring in from Texas, but they do lose their other top 2 wide receivers from last year. The offensive line, going to be pretty solid, though, and that's big for Cam Scatterbo, their leading rusher. 788 yards last year, 9 touchdowns. They're going to lean on him a lot this season. He's going to kind of be the workhorse of this offense, by far their best offensive player. The stats should improve offensively, but if they can't get consistent quarterback play, they're not going to be able to hang in some of the games with some of these other Big 12 offenses. Take a look at the defense. 4 starters are back after giving up 31.8 points per game, their worst mark since 2017, allowing 397 yards per game, including 263 through the air. Their leading tackler, though, he returns. Shamari Simmons back at safety, and they add 7 transfers back there in the secondary, including Xavion Alford from Texas. Clayton Smith is back, 4.5 tackles for a loss last year up front on the defensive line. Caleb McCullough in at the linebacking core returning this year. They've got talent at all 3 levels, but once again, can it all come together? Can they stop the run? Can the secondary be better after being pretty bad last year? Can those transfers gel quickly? A lot of questions for Dillingham's squad, and when you look at their schedule, you realize, man, it's tough. They're playing a lot of experienced teams. They're playing a lot of good teams in the Big 12, and the non-conference, there are no gimmies. Wyoming, Mississippi State, Texas State, all non-conference games. Every single one of those could be a loss for the Sun Devils. There's no game on there you go, that's a definite surefire win. They don't have that this year. They open up against Wyoming. I think they win that game. The Cowboys are no slouch. They are a very good rushing team. So if the Sun Devils front 7 can contain the run, Wyoming under a first-year head coach this year as well, if they can stop the run, they will win this game at home. Don't allow Wyoming to be balanced. Don't allow them to run wild on you. Stop the run, and you win. It'll be a low-scoring game, but I like Arizona State to eke out a victory here, kind of similar to the season opener last year, and they're 1-0. Then they take on Mississippi State. An intriguing non-conference game. The Bulldogs making a trek all the way out to the desert. A couple years ago, they had the home-and-home with Arizona. Played out in the desert then. Now they've got it with Arizona State. The Bulldogs are under a first-year head coach. Jeff Lebby, a great offensive mind. Kenny Dillingham, a great offensive mind. The sad thing is, neither of these offenses are going to be that good. I wish we were getting to see this matchup with these coaches in like 2 or 3 years when they've kind of hitting their stride at their respective programs. But Arizona State doesn't have a great offense. Mississippi State has better quarterback play and better wide receivers. Blake Shapen transferring in from Baylor, better wide receivers across the board. But are they going to be able to gel and really fit Lebby's offense and his schemes by the second game of the year? What Arizona State does own in this game, though, is the defensive advantage. I know that may be hard to believe, but the Bulldogs lose 7 of their top 8 tacklers from last year, and they gave up over 145 rushing yards per game. So Scatterbo could have himself a pretty big day on the ground for Arizona State. I like the Sun Devils to get this win in what many would call a mini upset. I think in Game 2 and year 1 under a brand new head coach, the Bulldogs aren't going to be clicking and firing on all cylinders. The Desert, even though Arizona State's not going to be a good team, is not an easy place to play. It's going to be a tough environment. From a consistency standpoint, Arizona State's got that edge. I think it's a close game, but they beat Mississippi State to be 2-0, but they lose to Texas State to drop to 2-1. And look, if you don't know anything about Texas State, that pick may surprise you. But if you know what the Bobcats are capable of, this makes sense. Texas State is loaded. Went 8-5 last year after averaging 36.7 points per game. 18 starters are now back from that squad. And they reloaded in the transfer portal. They added veteran quarterback in Jordan McLeod, who had an amazing season at James Madison last year. Ismail Mahdi is back after rushing for over 1,300 yards last year. 5 of their top 6 pass catchers in improving defense for the Bobcats. G.J. Kinney's got this team rolling. Some say they could be a playoff contender if the Bobcats can go 12-0. That's not entirely far-fetched. Arizona State will drop this game. The Bobcats offense can be way too much for them, and they are 2-1. Then they enter conference play. And it's just so brutal, guys. They play all the top dogs. They got to play Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Of course, their rival in Arizona, who's coming off a 10-win season. UCF's got a great offense. On the road at Cincinnati. Kansas has got a great offense. I mean, it's a tough schedule. They didn't get any breaks. They didn't get many breaks on this schedule. I'll tell you how they lose to Texas Tech. They're going to lose to Texas Tech. Their offense simply going to be too much. Baron Morton, Taj Brooks, some good receivers coming back. 5 starters back on a defense that was not nearly as bad as people realized last year. They lose in Lubbock. They're 2-2 going into their bye week. They're going to lose all 3 prior to their next bye week. Kansas, if they can stay healthy, they're going to be great. Jalen Daniels, Devin Neal, their top 3 pass catchers, and a defense that took a pretty big step forward last year, I think can take another pretty big step forward this year. So even though they're well rested, the Jayhawks won't have an issue against this Arizona State defense. They're not beating Utah. Last year they lost to Utah 55-3 in Pac-12 play. So it's kind of cool seeing these teams play Big 12 conference games, even though they were Pac-12 conference games last year. But they lost to the Utes 55-3 and were outgained by 430 yards. Arizona State mustered 83 yards of offense against the Utes defense and allowed 513. And that was without Cam Rising. That was without Brant Keithy. Those guys are back. Utah's defense is elite once again. They don't stand a chance against the Utes. And then on the road at Cincinnati, their first meeting against the Bearcats since 1976. Cincinnati, though, up front, very solid. They're going to have to force whoever's quarterback, Levitt, Sims, whoever it may be, to win this game through the air. Arizona State's not going to be capable of doing that. The Bearcats stopped the run very well. Corey Kiner has himself a pretty solid day against this rushing defense of Arizona State. Nippert Stadium, we were just there. Not a very easy place to play. They lose that game. 2-0, lose 5 straight to 2-5. Coming out of the bye week, their final 5 games, very, very difficult. At Oklahoma State, at Kansas State, at Arizona. The only 2 home games are UCF and BYU. And BYU is the most winnable of those 2 home games, and the most winnable probably of all 4 or all 5 of the remaining games. But I'm here to tell you the Sun Devils aren't winning any of them. We're just going to cut to the chase here. We said it was going to be bad at the beginning. You knew it. We warned you. They're going to lose all 5 of those games. They do not stand a chance at Oklahoma State. Had a home-and-home with the Cowboys the last 2 years, and now it's a conference game. Who would have thought a couple of years ago, even last year, that this would now be a conference game in the Big 12? But here we are. The Cowboys loaded with talent, 19 starters back, leading rusher in the nation last year, Ollie Gordon, returning to Stillwater. They lose to the Cowboys. They lose to UCF, who's just way more experienced across the board. Got a veteran quarterback in KJ Jefferson, RJ Harvey, great wide receivers, 8 starters back on defense. I mean, again, great offensive game. Gus Malzahn versus Kenny Dillingham, but even the Sun Devils offense won't be up to the standards they need to be. They fall to UCF. They fall to Kansas State, no doubt about that. The Wildcats are a favorite to win the Big 12 this year, have one of the best defenses in this conference, and their rushing game is going to be dangerous with Avery Johnson and DJ Giddens. They fall to them. BYU, we said, was the most winnable game, and maybe you chalk that up as a win. It doesn't matter at this point, but chalk it up as a win if you want to. I don't think they can beat the Cougars, though. I don't have faith in BYU having a big year this year at all. They're not going to have a good season, but they've got a lot more experience. They've got a veteran QB in Gary Bohannon. They've got 6 of their top 7 pass catchers returning. LJ Martin is back at running back. 4 of their top 6 tacklers are back. And I like Kalani Sitake and his coaching experience more so than Kenny Dillingham right now. So senior day for the Sun Devils, that is a winnable game. And they're playing for pride. They're playing for those seniors. Maybe they come through. But I think BYU takes a little bit of an improvement statistically. Maybe not in the win total, but statistically, they win this game. And then the Sun Devils do lose on the road to their rival, the Wildcats, They lost 59-23 last year, allowing 619 yards of offense, 527 of those coming through the air. The Wildcats, once again, loaded on both sides of the ball, but especially at quarterback and Noah Fafita and Teteroa McMillan. They will win this game on their senior day. They will beat their in-state rival, and the Sun Devils will go 2-10, which is worse than last year. And that's the frustrating thing. I think this team is better than last year. I think statistically and competitively, they will be better than last year. But the scheduling and just the youth of this team is what will be their downfall. But more than anything, it's the scheduling. Arizona State 2-10, 4-8 is their max. Maybe they beat BYU and win one more conference game. Maybe they beat Texas State, whoever it may be. But I don't think they go better than 4-8. We're going to go on the low end, 2-10 for Kenny Dillingham, which means he, I think, will be on the hot seat entering 2025. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to leave your thoughts about Arizona State down below. But your thoughts about the Big 12 as a whole down below in the comments. We want to hear from you, but continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below, including our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of our newsletters, home of those expert picks. If you want exclusive content year-round and really year-round college football content, this is the place for you, and everything down in the description is for you. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.